Good afternoon. I'm Amanda McMullen, the president of the New Bedford Whaling Museum, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the 118th annual members meeting. It's been quite a year, and I stand here today profoundly grateful to you, our members, our supporters, our champions. Thank you. Like you, the museum soldiered through this year, and thanks to your incredible support, we are emerging stronger than ever. We have a tremendous program ahead for you. In just a moment, we will hear from Michael Bobbitt, the new executive director at the Massachusetts Cultural Council. And shortly after that, we will invite you to exercise your votes as members to help us chart our path forward. But before we jump ahead, we hope you'll enjoy this quick look at an extraordinary year.
Well, this has certainly been an unexpected year for the museum and for the community. The pandemic, an economic depression, and a renewed interest in the social justice movement. And it has impacted the museum and this community in so many ways. It's been a hard year. On March 13th, we closed the museum. We didn't know when we were going to reopen. We didn't know where our attendance revenue was going to be, and we had to make decisions about staff and how to continue forward. Fortunately, we were able to respond.
It was Thursday, March 12th, and I remember seeing major institutions in New York and Boston who started to close. I sent an email out to the executive committee and asked for an early morning meeting with them. And my recommendation to them, of course, was that we were going to be closing. And the biggest piece for me as I drove home in just absolute silence in my car, I kept thinking, I can figure out all of the business piece of it. We have an endlessly supportive community. The one piece that just continued to just be my greatest worry was that we're a museum. We are in the business of bringing people together. With people not being able to be together, what was that going to look like? And then the miracle is this team. We wanted to keep the team safe, insured, employed, and productive. This team kicked it in on a level that I know how great they are, but it surpassed all of my expectations. The creativity that came, the innovation that came, the stamina that came, the sheer grit and determination to make this museum relevant to people and accessible to people.
I think a big pivot and shift that happened when we closed to the public was thinking about which parts of our work were most important. And realizing that we really wanted to be able to do things that fell into the core content areas of the museum. So we wanted to be able to demonstrate and to say that we were doing great programming and work in art, science, history, and culture. We realized that it was also really important to think about access and accessibility. And we broadly have defined accessibility as both sort of the mindsets and actions and space around disability, but also as the ability to actually access and use our materials in ways that make sense and help people to use them. So everything from translating materials to providing, things online, all of those fall under what we're thinking about as our umbrella of access and accessibility for all of our programming.
Around June, the governor and different public health officials said July is going to be the museum phase where you can start to open up and start to bring people in. There was that moment in July when we reopened and we had a press event and the mayor came. It was great to have him sort of really taking the charge to open up downtown. And I remember getting up to welcome him and introduce everybody and looking over the bank of cameras and seeing so many of my colleagues from other organizations, executive directors, heads of different cultural organizations, museums, and the fact that they were there for the day that we all opened back up. There was this incredible sense of unity, and then the doors opened up and people were back in. Our first full week going 7 days was just such a buzz. There was so much energy. The museum felt alive again. Being able to welcome people back in, that whole sense of coming together. and I can look across the street to Moby Dick Brewery, and I can go get a cup of coffee at Tia's, and I can just see the activity picking up in the city.
We are certainly thankful for the work of our staff, our volunteers, our board members, and our membership. It has been an incredible year of support from all of these participants. Thank you. Thank you all very, very much for your commitment to the mission of the New Bedford Whaling Museum.
A lot of our strategic planning was focused on the 4 words that you've probably been hearing: welcome, engage, steward, and thrive. The rest of them are in no specific order, but welcome is very clearly the first. Because for me, the most important thing any museum can do from here on forward is looking at welcome from a standpoint of every single visitor and understanding what their needs are, what their interests are, what their connection is. We are hosting you. I'll know we achieved welcome when I hear people say, it's my museum, it's our museum.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending our annual meeting today. I can officially open the meeting. There is a quorum present, and I will declare the quorum as being present. We have an exciting agenda today, and we're going to lead off with our keynote speaker, Michael Bobbitt. Michael is a director, a choreographer, and a playwright. On February 1st, 2021, he joined the Mass Cultural Council as executive director, becoming the highest ranking cultural official in all of Massachusetts. MCC has been a vitally important partner to the museum for many years. It not only provides important financial support for a broad and impressive array of organizations and projects throughout the Commonwealth, but it also works tirelessly to advocate for and build the capacity of the arts and culture sector. Please join me in welcoming Michael Bobbitt to our annual meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony. It's good to see you and good to see Amanda. Good evening, everyone. I am so pleased to join you today for the New Bedford Whaling Museum's annual membership meeting. My 20-year-old son, an aspiring marine biologist, is so jealous. He texted me like 4 times today to see how this conversation went. As Tony mentioned, I'm the executive director of Mass Cultural Council, your state agency charged with the very important job of bolstering the nonprofit cultural sector, which we define as arts, humanities, and sciences in the state. About 2 weeks ago, I celebrated my 100th day in this position, so I am new to the role and new to state government, and learning about the organization and all that the state has to offer no longer feels like drinking from a fire hose. I'm actually more comfortable in the seat. But I'm very proud to tell you that the talented and dedicated team of professionals at the agency gives 110% every single day, administering grant programs and providing professional services to make sure all our cultural nonprofits, communities, and creative individuals can thrive. I also, a couple of weeks ago, got to swing through Fall River and bump elbows with Amanda, which was a nice surprise. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to get back there and visit New Bedford, its cultural district that was newly named, and the Whaling Museum. Thank goodness things are getting safe. I am just enchanted by the South Coast and really can't wait to get there and enjoy Tia's and Moby Dick Brewery, right? We're so impressed that you welcome over 100,000 visitors annually, including 15,000 K-12 students. We have 1,500 active member households and visitors from all 50 states and 30 plus countries. It's really remarkable. I do hope to get there to see the Albert Pinkham Ryder Museum. I know that last year was tough. 2020, it's a do-over. I can't imagine the kinds of themed parties they'll have in 70 years when they think about the 2020s versus the 1920s. But I know you had a 72% drop in revenue, and I'm so grateful to the South Coast community for pitching in and helping to keep the museum alive. We still have a lot of work to do. It's going to be a couple of rough years coming up. It is no surprise that our sector has been economically devastated by COVID-19. In March, to mark the 1-year milestone of the pandemic, Mass Cultural Council released data It collected on the economic impacts of the closures and cancellations that our stakeholders had to go through from March 20th through March 21st. And here are the results. 981 nonprofit and municipal cultural organizations reported losing an overwhelming $588 million in revenue, while 2,951 artists, teaching artists, and scientists cited $30 million in lost personal income due to the pandemic. And more than 30,000 cultural jobs statewide had been impacted. Difficult decisions were made by employers to lay off, furlough, and reduce pay or wages for their staff. And that's only those who reported. We know that the impact is actually much, much, much deeper. We are all anticipating the end of the state of emergency in June. And I know this, that the Commonwealth's overall economy cannot make a complete recovery without the restoration and the relief of the cultural sector. And it's the innovation and thinking of creatives and artists that is so important to come up with new ideas to steer Massachusetts down this road and this unpaved road. So why is the cultural sector so important to the state's economy? Well, prior to COVID-19 pandemic, the cultural nonprofit organization supported by Mass Cultural Council generated $2.3 billion in annual economic activity across the Commonwealth. Also, just as a side note, the national GDP reported $9.19 billion in economic impact, which is more than agriculture, more than education, and more than construction. In Massachusetts, the cultural sector supported more than 71,000 full-time equivalent jobs and produced more than $128 million in new revenues for Massachusetts. And every dollar that we awarded was leveraged to raise another $157 in private funds. So how do we make sure Beacon Hill invests in arts and culture to ensure complete recovery for our sector? Well, there are three ideas we are working on right now. First, some really good news. The main state investment in arts and culture is made every year through the agency's account in the state budget. The State House and the Senate are currently building the FY22 budget, and Mass Cultural Council is in line to receive $20 million, which is $1.8 million in the last 2 years, and also the highest level of funding for arts and culture since 1986, I think it is. Plan to use this funding to bolster our grants and services, which will help stabilize the sector. Second, there's a major piece of legislation pending review at the State House, Senate Bill 2246, that this proposal directs a minimum of $200 million of the Federal American Recovery Act COVID relief funds Massachusetts will receive to the cultural sector. So however much we get, we want 200 million of that to support this sector. We're working hard to build up support for this proposal with Mass Creative, our advocacy partners, and are still collecting co-sponsors. So please email your state rep and your state senator and ask them to prioritize and co-sponsor Senate Bill 2246. We're grateful to Senator Ed Kennedy for sponsoring this. Lastly, there's a statewide special commission working right now to document the impact of COVID on the cultural and creative sectors and make policy recommendations on how to address and provide relief. I'm a member of this commission, and we are working hard to come up with recommendations for our deadline at the end of June. If you have ideas, please share them with me or share them with the commission chair, State Senator Kennedy, and State Rep Carol Fiola, who I think is out in your way. We strongly believe in the power of culture. We are working on our race equity plan, and we'll be sharing that with the public soon to address historical inequities in public funding for the arts. And as an arts, science, history, and cultural organization, I hope you will continue to take this time to deeply look at racial and social injustice, further your access and accessibility programs, and continue to look at programmatic innovation. I invite you to engage with us to help us secure more public investments and harness the power of culture in your community. And so please stay in touch. Connect with us on social media at Mass Cultural or sign up for one of our newsletters. And I thank you so much for letting me come here and speak to you.
Thank you, Michael. That was the numbers are staggering in terms of the losses of this past year. But we have confidence that as a Commonwealth, we will endure and we will bring this stuff back to happen. You at the MCC will be important players in that. And we want you to know that we can help you as well. And if there's things that you need from us as an institution, please feel free to ask, and we will do our very best to support your work.
Thank you, Tony. Really, what we need is for everyone listening to this webinar to reach out to their state senators and reps to support the budget and support Senator Kennedy's bill. That's going to go a long way. They need to hear from their constituents.
Great. Okay, well, thank you, Michael. We do hope that you come to see us sometime soon. And you know the door is always open for your visit.
I will be there. Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you. Moving on, we have lost so much this past year. It has been longer than usual since we've been able to gather for a memorial service to honor members of the museum community who we've lost. We are planning a memorial service for this fall. But until that time, today, we want to take a moment to recognize several former trustees who dedicated decades of service to the museum. Charlie Bascom, an avid sailor and entrepreneur. His volunteer leadership at the museum and other organizations demonstrates his decades-long commitment to this community. Norm Shakoy, also an accomplished sailor. Norm's kindness, wise counsel, and dedication to family and community has made the museum and the South Coast a better place for all. Captain Bob Walker, exacting in all things. He shared his deep knowledge and love of the sea, in part by generously supporting the museum's maritime publications and exhibits. And finally, Gurdon Waddles, a driving force behind the creation of the museum's apprenticeship program and the Waddles Jacobs Education Center, among many other projects that he championed. Gurdon delighted most in connecting young people with paths to opportunity. Let's take a silent minute to reflect on these four outstanding individual supporters of the museum. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Joe McDonough and Michelle Taylor, our CFO, for the video recording of the Treasurer's Report.
"2020 was a true test, which the New Bedford Whaling Museum passed with flying colors. A year ago, when faced with the COVID uncertainty, the museum decided to bet on both our donors and employees. The bet was that one would help the other. When asked to help, our donors responded with extraordinary generosity. Our employees worked harder than ever from their homes and created a virtual museum with new programming which attracted thousands of online visitors. 2020 was a challenge for us all. The New Bedford Whaling Museum certainly met that challenge. Now, as our lives begin to return to the way they were, the museum is ready to go with new exhibits and new programs. Michelle Taylor, the Chief Financial Officer and Chief Administrative Officer, will discuss the 2020 financial results in greater detail. Michelle was instrumental in successfully pivoting the museum into the COVID world.
Well, first, let me give a big thank you to Joe McDonough for his tremendous leadership as the museum's treasurer for more than a decade. Joe has been an absolute rock for this institution. His wisdom and expertise has guided us through some real challenging times, as well as contributed to our reaching new heights. Joe, the support that you've given me over the years has been invaluable, and I have tremendous respect for you and the work that you've done for this museum. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to report the museum's financial performance for 2020. In past years, we have been fortunate to have a diverse revenue pie with membership, contributed income, and a healthy $1.2 million in earned revenue like admissions, gift store sales, and rental income. Well, COVID-19 changed all of that. Faced with the potential loss of $1 million in earned revenue, we acted very quickly. And one thing was made clear early on. Our top priority was keeping the museum team employed, productive, and healthy. In our quest to reduce expenses, we cut things, not people. We didn't cancel major initiatives, we postponed them. And with this approach, our team was creative, resilient, and inspired in their work, and you remained engaged. In normal times, we expect 25% of our operating income to come from those earned revenue categories. This year, just 7% came from those sources. Thankfully, we were able to qualify for federal and state relief funding to close that gap. We are so grateful to the museum's members, donors, and friends for the outpouring of support for our work. In addition to the $3 million in general operating support and support for special projects, new gifts to the endowment totaled nearly $1.5 million. By far, our members and individual donors are our greatest champions, providing the greatest portion of our operating funds at 47%. Your membership, your participation in our programs, and your support of the Museum Fund have been absolutely vital to our success every year, but especially this year. Thank you. For the 13th consecutive year, the museum achieved a positive operating result. Our balance sheet remains strong, with the endowment standing at more than $17 million. We've maintained the top 4-star rating from Charity Navigator for financial health, accountability, and transparency, and we've maintained the highest GuideStar Platinum seal. Thank you all for your unwavering support.
Thank you, Joe and Michelle, for the treasurer's report. I want to take a minute just to acknowledge what Michelle referenced in terms of Joe's tenure for more than 10 years as the treasurer of this organization. It has been a remarkable 10 years, most difficult, of course, this past year, but Joe has been an outstanding treasurer, and I want to add my personal thanks to Joe for his service as the treasurer while I have been chair. Thank you, Joe. Next, we have Ed Howland. Ed has chaired the governance committee for the past year, and the governance committee has embarked on all of its normal business in addition to talking a lot about diversity, access, accessibility, equity, and inclusion. But Ed has a report that he will now has prepared for the membership. Ed?
Good afternoon. My name is Edward Howland, and I am chairman of the Governance Committee. Today we have 4 votes that Tony will lead you through. A vote to approve the amendments to the bylaws, a vote to approve the class of the incoming 2024 trustees, a vote to approve the slate of officers for 2021-2022, and a vote to approve trustees nominated for a second 3-year term. Our committee has been extremely diligent in our review of the many candidates put forth by trustees and staff. The primary focus of our committee was to be sure that any candidate we proposed was fully vetted and considered to be among the strongest, most talented, and dedicated choices in the pool. Another charge of the committee was to reach out in particular to representatives of the community of New Bedford. We are proposing a broad range of candidates, including 5 women and 2 men from diverse ethnic, cultural, racial, and career backgrounds, whom we hope will help us engage more fully with our nearby neighbors, members, and friends, and represent a new generation of leaders for the museum. The proposed slate of officers is as follows: Anthony Sapienza, Chair; Patricia Shade, First Vice Chair; Bernadette Souza, Second Vice Chair; Hardwick Simmons, Treasurer; Ricardo Bermudez, Assistant Treasurer; Eugene Montero, Clerk; Paulina Arruda, Assistant Clerk; and Carol M. Taylor, PhD, Past Chair. The nominations for the class of 2024 are as follows: Thomas Anderson, Dr. Patricia Andrade, MD, David Gomes, Dana Ribeiro, Maria Rosario, Nancy Shannock, and Allison Wells. The trustees nominated for a second term are Christina Bascom, Robert Kelly, and David Wright. I also want to thank our committee, which is a committee of 17 who really put a lot of effort into this year's slate and thinking about the future of the museum. The governance committee members were as follows: Onesimo Almeida, Tricia Andrade, Paulina Aruda, Carl Cruz, Lloyd McDonald, Joe McDonough, Jean Montero, Alice Rice Perkins, Gil Perry, John Pinheiro, Kathy Roberts, Bruce Rose, Tony Sapienza, Tina Schmid, Bernadette Souza, and Carol Taylor. And that, I believe, covers the votes. Again, we need 4 votes, and I will pass that detail along to Tony. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. And thank you to the members of the Governance Committee for your hard work this year. We now have 4 votes, and I think most of you are familiar with the hybrid voting process we'll go through. The first vote is for the approval of the bylaws. I would ask for a motion for this vote.
I second it.
Thank you. The vote for the members of please vote via the chat, the function with the screen in front of you. We still have votes coming in, but there's an overwhelming majority in favor of the adoption of the amendments to the bylaws. As such, I will declare the approval to be complete. Thank you. Our second vote is to approve the class of 2024 new trustees that Ed presented in the governance report. Are there any additional nominations for new trustees? There being none, I will call the question. All those in favor of the, I'm sorry.
I move the motion.
I'm sorry, I need a motion for that vote. Is there a motion on the floor? Thank you, Tina. And a
So
second.
moved.
Thank you, Joe, for your seconding of that motion. Is there further discussion or additions to the class of 2024? I will call the question. Please vote using the polling function. I will keep the polling open for a few more seconds as we move right along. All good. The motion to adopt and okay, the vote is in and we have 100% in favor to adopt the class of 2024 trustees. Thank you. The third vote is for the nominations for trustees to a second term that Ed presented in his governance committee report. Is there a motion for this vote?
I move the motion.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, John. There is a second. Is there further discussion or other nominations to be made? There being none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify by voting in the poll function. We have a majority, an overwhelming majority, as the tally continues. I can say that the motion has been adopted for the trustees nominated for a second term. For the final vote of officers, I'm going to ask John Garfield to preside for that vote.
Thank you, Tony. We will now vote to approve the slate of officers for the 2021-22 officers for the governance, as the governance committee has requested. Are there any questions or nominations from the floor which should be directed through the chat feature? Please let me know. I would ask for a motion to accept this slate of officers.
So moved.
Thank you, Tina. A second, please.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Joe. A second. I will now call the vote for the slate of officers. Please vote on the ballot on your screen, please. With 80% of the votes in, it looks like it's unanimous to this point. So I would declare that the slate of officers is duly elected. Congratulations, Mr. Sapienza, for another term. Now I turn it back to you.
Thank you, John, for presiding over that vote, and thank you to the members for re-electing me to another term. It has been an honor to have chaired this board, and I look forward to the return to normal that we are all anticipating, with renewed vigor, attendance, and just great educational experiences for our visitors. I do want to acknowledge the departing trustees who will be leaving the board this year. We have benefited from their wisdom. They are leaders in our community, and we are deeply dedicated, grateful for their dedication and leadership. Pam Donnelly.
I want to take this time to thank our departing trustees. We are deeply grateful for their dedication and leadership as trustees, as committee chairs, and as officers. Pamela Donnelly, our in-house architect and champion of DEAI initiatives. Michael Moore, our resident scientist from Woods Hole, and someone who has led our scholarships and publications committee for a number of years. Faith Morningstar, a generous and compassionate spirit who always speaks well with wisdom and knowledge and thoughtfulness. Barbara Mulville, fundraiser par excellence, a voice in this community, a powerful voice advocating for the museum and leading our development efforts. Alice Rice Perkins, also a strong advocate in this community, someone who chaired development and loved planning events that we all have enjoyed. Gunga Tavares, our link to the Portuguese motherland, a consulate attaché for Cape Verde. She was powerful both here in New Bedford and on Cape Verde, where our presence has been felt and known. And finally, Susan Wolkoff, our education committee chair, a former officer, someone who has had input in all of our education initiative and supported the work of the apprenticeship program and lighting the way. I also want to recognize Dee LeClaire. Dee is the outgoing volunteer council president who has seen the museum's incredibly dedicated crew of docents through an unprecedented year, one in which they shifted to take on new roles in the museum and on Zoom to keep the museum's work alive. We are deeply grateful for Dee's volunteerism, and her spirit.
Thank you for joining today and for continuing your support of the museum through truly unprecedented circumstances. Put simply, you as members sustain this organization. And as we look forward together to better days ahead, I want to thank each and every one of you for making the museum's work possible. And there is so much more to look forward to. Our Grand Panorama is on loan at the Mystic Seaport Museum. That exhibition opens Memorial Day weekend. We are thrilled that the panorama and our own brand will reach new audiences there throughout the summer. Our own landmark summer exhibition, A Wild Note of Longing, Albert Pinkham Ryder and a Century of American Art, will open here in New Bedford on June 24th. It's already generating a huge amount of interest locally and in art circles nationally and everywhere. Finally, please be sure to join us on the evening of July 31st for our Picnic on the Hill, our annual benefit and social event for the summer season, which will be held here in Captain Paul Cuffey Park. Getting through these last 15 months took a lot of heroes. We want to give back to the heroes in your life. For the month of June, you can nominate a New Bedford hero at New Bedford NB Hero at whalingmuseum.org. At the end of June, the museum will send out New Bedford Heroes, a free family membership for the year. Get your nominations in. There are so many heroes in this community. Is there any new business? If there is none, with that, I am pleased to conclude our 118th annual members meeting of the Old Dartmouth Historic Society with a new song by Candida Rose. Candida is a singer, songwriter, and a member of our Cape Verdean Advisory Council who was inspired by the heroes, or as she said, quote, the beauty coming from people helping others, even in the midst of chaos. Please enjoy Love Each Other Through.
Treasures we must hold on to, no matter what the cost. Compassion, kindness, and empathy, if we can only name a few, and for humanity's sake, love's the most precious thing. Ever